The warning came at 3:47 in the morning. Captain Jake Morrison was drinking his third cup of coffee when the alarm screamed through the UES Defiance Command Center. His hands stopped shaking from exhaustion as he saw the readings on his screen. 12 massive objects had just appeared at the edge of the solar system. Each object was bigger than anything humans had ever built. The largest one was nearly 3 miles long and shaped like a dagger. The computer systems struggled to process what they were seeing. These ships were not from Earth. Morrison grabbed his communication device and spoke quickly into it. Priority alert to Earth Command. We have 12 unknown vessels approaching the inner solar system. Repeat, 12 unknown vessels of massive size detected. The response came back in seconds. Defiance, this is Admiral Susan Carter. Are you certain these are not our ships? Morrison looked at his screen again. The ships were moving in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming with an strange blue light. Admiral, these ships are not human. They are too big and too advanced. We have never seen anything like this before. On the largest alien ship, Admiral Vorthik stood on his command bridge, looking at the small blue planet ahead. He was 8 feet tall with dark green scales covering his body. His yellow eyes showed no emotion as he studied the primitive world before him. Report, Vorthik said to his second-in-command. Admiral, we have detected the usual signs of a primitive civilization. They use crude chemical rockets and have not even mastered faster than light travel. Their weapons appear to be basic nuclear missiles and kinetic projectiles. Vorthik smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. Excellent. Another easy conquest for the Empire. Have you found signs of useful resources? Yes, Admiral. The planet has large amounts of water, metals, and what appears to be a diverse population. The species looks similar to the Karathi we collected from the Rigel system. They should make good workers. The alien admiral walked to his command chair and sat down. His massive form filled the seat completely. Open a communication channel. To the planet. Let us give them the standard offer. On Earth, President Lisa Rodriguez was pulled from her sleep by her security team. She was rushed to the underground command center beneath the White House. The room was filled with military, officers and scientists, all talking at once. Madam President, said General Peter Hayes as she entered the room, we have a situation. 12 alien warships have entered our solar system and are heading directly for Earth. Rodriguez felt her stomach drop. This was the moment every leader feared but none believed would actually happen. How long do we have? At their current speed, approximately 18 hours before they reach Earth orbit. Admiral Carter stepped forward. Madam President, we are receiving a transmission from the lead ship. The main screen in the room flickered to life. A massive reptilian face appeared, its yellow eyes staring directly at them. When it spoke, its voice was deep and cold. Primitive beings of the third planet, I am Admiral Vorthik of the Draconian Imperial Fleet. Your world has been selected for collection by the Empire. You will surrender all military forces and prepare your population for processing. Any resistance will result in the complete destruction of your civilization. You have 1 rotation of your planet to comply. The screen went black. The room was silent for several long seconds. Processing? Asked Rodriguez quietly. Dr. Rachel Stone, the head of the Xenobiology Research Division, stepped forward. Her face was pale, but her voice was steady. Madam President, based on their choice of words and approach, I believe they intend to enslave our population. The term collection suggests they have done this before. General Hayes slammed his fist on the table. We need to evacuate the major cities immediately. Get our nuclear submarines into position and prepare all missile systems. That won't be enough, said Admiral Carter quietly. Our most powerful weapons might damage one of their ships, but 12 of them? We would need a miracle. President Rodriguez looked around the room at the faces of her advisors. These were some of the smartest and bravest people on Earth, and they all looked defeated before the fight had even begun. "There has to be something we can do," she said. "We are not going to surrender our planet without a fight." Admiral Carter stepped closer to the president. "Madam President, there is something you need to know. Something that has been classified at the highest levels for over 50 years. Rodriguez turned to face her. "What are you talking about?" "In 1970, we detected and captured an alien probe in the outer solar system. We have been studying alien technology for decades. We are not as helpless as we appear." The room erupted in voices as everyone began talking at once. Rodriguez held up her hand for silence. "Explain," she said simply. Carter walked to a secure terminal and entered a long code. The main screen changed to show a star map with dozens of red dots scattered across it. Each red dot represents a human colony or outpost. We have been spreading across the galaxy for 30 years, hiding our true capabilities from any species that might threaten us. Earth is not our only world, Madam President. It is our home, but it is also our bait. Commander Alex Turner, who had been silent until now, finally spoke. "The Draconians think they are attacking a primitive civilization. They have no idea what they are really facing." In space, the Draconian fleet continued its approach to Earth. Admiral Vorthik was already planning how to divide the human population. The strong ones would work in the mines, the smart ones would maintain their technology, and the rest would be disposed of. He had conquered 47 worlds using the same tactics. Arrive with overwhelming force, demand surrender, and crush any resistance quickly and brutally. It had never failed, but as his ships moved closer to the small blue planet, scanners throughout the solar system were watching them. Hidden bases on asteroids and moons began powering up systems that had waited decades for this moment. The Draconians had made one crucial mistake. They assumed that a species confined to one world was primitive and weak. They were about to learn that sometimes the most dangerous predator is the one that pretends to be prey. The first Draconian ships entered Earth's atmosphere 12 hours later. Admiral Vorthik watched from his command bridge as his forces began their attack. Everything was going exactly as planned. His ships targeted what appeared to be the planet's main military bases. Explosions lit up the ground as missile silos and Air Force bases were destroyed. The humans were fighting back with their primitive aircraft, but their weapons barely scratched the Draconian shields. "Admiral," reported his weapons officer, "the humans are launching nuclear missiles at our ships." Vorthik laughed. "Let them waste their weapons. Our shields can handle 1,000 of their crude bombs." On the ground, Colonel Ben Parker watched the enemy ships through his binoculars. He was hiding in a forest outside what used to be Peterson Air Force Base. The base was now a smoking crater, but that was exactly what they wanted the aliens to see. Parker spoke into his radio. "Phoenix Base, this is Ground Team 7. The enemy has taken the bait. They destroyed the decoy installations perfectly." The voice on the radio was calm. "Confirmed, Ground Team 7. Phase 2 is beginning now. All units maintain the illusion." The Draconians had destroyed empty buildings and abandoned equipment. The real military installations were hidden deep underground or disguised as civilian structures. Every explosion they saw was carefully planned to look devastating while causing no real damage. Captain Helen Ross was flying her F-35 fighter jet toward a Draconian cruiser. Her mission looked like a desperate suicide attack, but it was much more than that. Hidden in her weapons bay was a device that would change everything. "Lightning Squadron, this is Lightning 1, she said over the radio. "We are beginning our attack run. Remember, make it look good." Her squadron of 12 fighters dove toward the alien ship. The Draconian defensive weapons opened fire, filling the sky with energy beams. Two of the human fighters exploded in bright flashes. The pilots ejected safely, but the aliens would never know that Dot Ross pushed her fighter closer to the enemy ship. Alarms screamed in her cockpit as the alien weapons locked onto her. At the last second, she fired a special missile at the ship's hull. The missile appeared to explode harmlessly against the shields, but something much smaller passed through and attached itself to the ship. "Lightning 1 to all units," Ross called out as she turned away. "Package delivered. I repeat, package delivered." The Draconian cruiser never detected the small device that was now embedded in its hull. The device was smaller than a coin and used technology that operated beyond their understanding. It began to map every system on the ship and send the information to hidden receivers throughout the solar system. On the Draconian flagship, Science Officer Kureth was studying the wreckage of human military equipment. Everything he found confirmed what they already believed. The humans used simple computers, basic metals, and primitive energy sources. "Admiral," Kureth reported, "I have completed my analysis of their technology. These beings are even more primitive than our initial reports suggested. Their most advanced computers are slower than our basic calculators." Vorthik nodded. "Excellent. Begin scanning their population centers. We need to identify the useful ones before we begin collection." What Kureth did not know was that every piece of wreckage he studied contained tiny sensors. These sensors recorded everything about Draconian technology and transmitted the data to human scientists. Every scan the aliens performed was being monitored and analyzed. Dr. Rachel Stone sat in her hidden laboratory 2 miles beneath the Colorado mountains. Her screens showed data flowing in from dozens of sources around the planet. The Draconians were giving them everything they needed to know. "Fascinating," she said to her assistant. "Their technology is advanced, but extremely rigid. They have never encountered an enemy that could adapt quickly. This will be their weakness." The assistant looked worried. "Doctor, are you sure this plan will work? If they discover what we are really doing?" Stone smiled. "They won't discover it because they cannot imagine it. They see primitive humans using simple technology. They cannot conceive that we might be hiding our true capabilities." Above ground, the Draconian occupation was proceeding smoothly. Their troops landed in major cities around the world. Humans ran in panic, just as they had on 47 other worlds. The aliens began setting up processing centers where they would sort the human population. Commander Ryan Clark watched the alien troops from his position in New York City. He was dressed as a homeless man, but under his ragged clothes was equipment worth more than most countries' military budgets. "Control, this is Observer One," he whispered into a device that looked like a broken cell phone. "The enemy is establishing processing stations in Times Square and Central Park. They are following standard occupation procedures." The response came through a tiny speaker in his ear. "Confirmed, Observer One. Continue monitoring. Do not engage unless absolutely necessary." Clark watched as Draconian soldiers began separating humans into different groups. Young and strong humans were put in one area, older humans in another, and children in a third group. It was exactly what their intelligence had predicted. The Draconians had done this so many times that they followed the same pattern on every world. This predictability was exactly what the humans were counting on. Admiral Vorthik was pleased with the progress. In less than 24 hours, they had conquered the entire planet. The human military was destroyed, their cities were occupied, and their population was ready for processing. "Science officer," he called out, "begin the deep scans of their technology. I want to know if they have anything useful before we dispose of the excess population." Karav activated the ship's most powerful scanners. Energy beams swept across the planet, penetrating deep into the ground. The scanners found exactly what they expected to find: a primitive civilization with basic technology and no surprises. But hidden beneath the surface Protected by technology the Draconians could not detect, humanity's true strength was waiting. Every scan, every analysis, every moment of Draconian confidence was being recorded and used against them. The trap was nearly complete. Dr. Kevin Murphy sat in his laboratory deep beneath the Antarctic ice. For 48 hours, he had watched the Draconians occupy Earth. Now it was time to show them the truth. Murphy pressed a button on his control panel. Around the world, hidden installations began to power up. Energy signatures that had been dormant for decades suddenly came online. Admiral Vorthik was reviewing the daily reports when his sensor officer shouted in alarm. "Admiral, we are detecting massive energy readings from multiple locations on the planet." Vorthik rushed to the sensor station. The display showed dozens of power sources appearing across Earth. Each one was larger than anything his scanners had detected before. "What is this?" Vorthik demanded. "Where did these readings come from?" Before anyone could answer, the space around the Draconian fleet began to shimmer. 12 massive human ships materialized out of nothing. Each ship was larger than a Draconian dreadnought and covered in weapons that defied alien understanding. Captain Lisa Shaw stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution. Her ship was 3 miles long and powered by technology that the Draconians thought was impossible. She opened a communication channel to the alien flagship. "Admiral Vorthik," Shaw said calmly, "this is Captain Shaw of the United Earth Star Fleet. You are surrounded and outgunned. I suggest you listen carefully to what we have to say." Vorthik stared at the display in shock. How had these massive ships appeared without warning? His sensors should have detected them from millions of miles away. "Impossible," he whispered. "Our intelligence reports said they were primitive. They have no space fleet." His communications officer turned to him with fear in his eyes. "Admiral, we are receiving thousands of signals from across the galaxy. Ships are identifying themselves as human vessels from dozens of star systems." The main screen filled with data as human ships revealed themselves throughout known space. The Draconians realized with growing horror that they were not facing a single primitive world. They were facing an interstellar civilization that had been hiding its true power. Commander Ryan Clark emerged from his disguise in New York City. The ragged clothes fell away to reveal a uniform that sparkled with advanced technology. Around the city, thousands of other humans did the same thing. The Draconian occupation troops found themselves surrounded by what they thought were helpless civilians. But these humans were carrying weapons that made Draconian equipment look like toys from a museum. "Attention Draconian forces," Clark announced through speakers that appeared from nowhere. "You are now prisoners of the United Earth Defense Force. Surrender your weapons and you will not be harmed." The alien soldiers raised their energy rifles, but when they tried to fire, nothing happened. Their weapons had been disabled by the same quantum viruses that were spreading through their ships. On the Draconian flagship, every system began to malfunction. Admiral Vorthik watched in terror as his ship stopped responding to commands. "Engineering report," he shouted. The chief engineer's voice came over the communication system, filled with panic. "Admiral, something is taking control of our systems. Every computer, every weapon, every life support system is being infected by some kind of virus." Dr. Rachel Stone appeared on the main screen of the Draconian bridge. Behind her was a command center that made their most advanced facilities look primitive. "Good morning, Admiral," Stone said pleasantly. "Allow me to explain what is happening to your fleet." Vorthik glared at the human woman. "What have you done to our ships?" "We have been studying your technology for over 50 years, Stone replied. "Every probe you sent into our space, every ship you lost in battle, every piece of Draconian equipment that fell into our hands taught us more about your systems." She gestured to screens behind her that showed detailed blueprints of Draconian ships. We know your technology better than you do. We have designed quantum viruses specifically for your computer systems. Every ship in your fleet is now under our control. General Maria Santos appeared beside Stone on the screen. Admiral Vorthik, I want you to understand something very important. Earth is not our only world. We have colonies in 47 star systems. We have been watching your empire for centuries. The general's expression grew cold. We know about every world you have destroyed. We know about every species you have enslaved. We have been waiting for you to make one crucial mistake. What? Mistake? Vorthik asked weakly. Attacking Earth, Santos replied. You see, Admiral, Earth is our home, but it is also our test. We use it to identify species like yours. Predators who destroy rather than create. Conquerors who enslave rather than cooperate. Captain Shaw's voice came over the communication. System again. Admiral, please look at your navigation display. Vorthik turned to see his navigation screen showing something impossible. Draconian space was filled with human ships. Hundreds of them surrounded every major Draconian world. How? Is this possible? He whispered. We have been following your fleet for months, Shaw explained. While you were traveling to Earth, our ships were moving into position throughout your empire. Your people at home have no idea what is happening here. Dr. Stone appeared on the screen again. Admiral, we intercepted your communications 3 days ago. Your empire thinks you are still approaching Earth. They have no idea that your entire fleet has been captured. The reality of the situation began to sink in for Vorthik. His mighty fleet was helpless. His empire was surrounded. Everything he thought he knew about humans was wrong. What do you want? He asked quietly. President Rodriguez appeared on the screen. Behind her were the leaders of dozens of species that the Draconians thought they had exterminated. We want justice, Admiral, Rodriguez said. For 50 years, we have been rescuing the survivors of your genocides, preserving the species you tried to destroy, preparing for this moment. The screen showed images of thriving worlds populated by species. The Draconians had attacked. All of them were alive, protected by human technology and defended by human ships. Your empire ends today, Rodriguez continued. The question is whether it ends with your cooperation or with your destruction. The choice is yours. Admiral Vorthik looked around his bridge at his terrified crew. For the first time in his life, he was completely helpless. Admiral Vorthik stared at the human leaders on his screen. His mind struggled to understand what was happening. Everything he knew about the galaxy had been turned upside down in a matter of hours. You speak of justice, Vorthik said, his voice shaking with anger and fear. We are the strongest species in the galaxy. We have conquered hundreds of worlds. How could a primitive race like yours possibly defeat us? Dr. Angela Foster appeared on the screen. She was standing in what looked like a vast library filled with ancient artifacts and glowing crystals. Behind her, the walls were covered with star maps that showed the entire galaxy. Admiral, Foster said calmly, humanity is not primitive. We are the children of the Forerunners. The name hit Vorthik like a physical blow. Every species in the galaxy knew the legends of the Forerunners. They were the ancient race that had ruled the stars millions of years ago, before mysteriously disappearing. Impossible, Vorthik whispered. The Forerunners are myths, stories told to children. Foster smiled sadly. The Forerunners were very real, Admiral. They built an empire that spanned the entire galaxy. They had technology that could reshape reality itself. But they discovered something that changed everything. She gestured to the artifacts behind her. They learned that power without wisdom leads to destruction. They saw what their empire was becoming and made a choice that no other species has ever made. Captain Steve Anderson joined Foster on the screen. He was wearing a uniform that seemed to shift and change as Vorthik watched. The technology was beyond anything the Draconian had ever seen. The Forerunners gave up their empire, Anderson explained. They destroyed their weapons and scattered their children across the galaxy. But before they ascended to a higher plane of existence, they left us with a mission. What mission? Vorthik asked, though he was beginning to fear the answer. 2. Test every species that seeks to conquer the galaxy, Anderson replied, to separate those who can grow beyond their violent nature from those who cannot. The screen changed to show images of dozens of different alien species. Some were familiar. To Vorthik, races that his empire had fought and defeated. Others were completely unknown. Every species gets the same test, Foster continued. We present ourselves as weak and vulnerable. We offer no threat and ask for no conflict. Then we wait to see what they choose to do. Vorthik felt his blood turn cold. You have tested others? Hundreds of species over the past 10,000 years, Anderson confirmed. Some choose peace and cooperation. We welcome them into the galactic community and share our knowledge with them. Others choose conquest and domination. What happens to those others? Vorthik asked, though he already knew Commander Nicole Heavens appeared on the screen. She was standing on the bridge of a ship that looked like it was made of living light. Those species face judgment, Admiral. Just as you are facing judgment now. The communication screen split to show multiple views across Draconian space. Human ships were appearing in every system, but they were not alone. Dozens of other species flew alongside them, races that the Draconians thought they had exterminated. The Korathi from Rigel, Evans said, pointing to one group of ships. The Zentari from the Vega system, the Morlocks from Arcturus. Every species your empire has collected over the past 1,000 years. Vorthik stared in horror as he recognized ship designs from dozens of extinct civilizations. But we destroyed their worlds. We saw them burn. You destroyed empty planets, Evans replied. We evacuated their populations years before you arrived. Every species you thought you had killed is alive and thriving under our protection. Science Officer Kurith spoke up from his station. Admiral, our long-range sensors are detecting massive fleet movements throughout the Empire. Human ships are appearing in every system simultaneously. The main screen showed a real-time map of Draconian space. Red dots representing Draconian. Worlds were being surrounded by blue dots, representing human and allied forces. The blue dots outnumbered the red ones by hundreds to one. How is this possible? Vorthik demanded. Our intelligence networks span the galaxy. How could you hide so many ships and people? Dr. Foster laughed softly. Admiral, your intelligence networks belong to us. They have belonged to us for centuries. Every report your scouts sent home was written by our people. Every piece of information about human capabilities came from sources we controlled. The terrible truth began to dawn on Vorthik. You have been manipulating us from the beginning. We have been guiding you toward this moment, Foster confirmed. Every conquest you made, every world you attacked, we were there watching and learning. We needed to understand your true nature before we acted. Commander Evans stepped forward. Admiral, we know about your breeding programs. We know about your slave markets. We know about the worlds you had strip-mined until nothing could live there. Images flashed across the screen, showing the devastation the Draconian Empire had caused. Dead worlds, extinct species, and billions of lives lost to their endless hunger for conquest. We also know about the species you keep in cages for entertainment, Evans continued. The children you steal from their families. The experiments you perform on sentient beings. Vorthik felt something he had never experienced before. Shame. For the first time, he was seeing his empire through the eyes of their victims. What do you want from us? He asked quietly. President Rodriguez reappeared on the screen. Her expression was firm, but not cruel. "We want you to choose, Admiral. You can continue down the path of conquest and destruction. If you do, your empire will be dismantled, and your people will face the same fate you have given to others." She paused to let her words sink in. "Or you can choose to change, to become something better than what you are now." "And if we choose to change?" Vorthik asked. "Then you will have the chance to earn redemption," Rodriguez replied. "You will work to repair the damage you have caused. You will help us rebuild the worlds you destroyed and restore the species you scattered." The alien admiral looked around. His bridge. His crew was listening to every word, their faces showing the same mixture of fear and confusion that he felt. "How do we know you will keep your word?" Vorthik asked. Captain Anderson smiled. "Because, Admiral, we are not you." Admiral Vorthik sat in his command chair for a long time without speaking. Around him, his crew waited in silence. The weight of the human ultimatum pressed down on them all like a physical force. Finally, Vorthik stood up and walked to the main screen. The faces of the human leaders looked back at him with patient expressions. They were not rushing him. They were not threatening him. They were simply waiting for his decision. "I need to speak with my government," Vorthik said finally. President Rodriguez nodded. "Of course, Admiral. But you should know that we have already made the same offer to your high command." The screen changed to show the Draconian home world. Massive human ships hung in orbit around the planet, but they were not attacking. Instead, they were broadcasting the same message that Earth was sending to Vorthik. "Your people are watching everything that happens here," Rodriguez continued. "They know that your fleet has been captured. They know that their empire is surrounded. The choice you make will be the choice for all Draconians." Vorthik felt the burden of his entire species resting on his shoulders. "What guarantee do we have that you will not simply destroy us once we surrender?" Captain Morrison appeared on the screen. He was standing on the bridge of his ship, looking calm and confident. "Admiral, let me tell you something about humans. We have had the power to destroy your empire for over a century. If we wanted you dead, you would already be dead." The screen showed images of Draconian worlds going about their daily business. Markets were open, children were playing, and people were living normal lives. They had no idea how close they had come to complete destruction. "We could have poisoned your water supplies," Morrison continued. "We could have sabotaged your ships before they ever reached Earth. We could have turned your own weapons against you. But we did not do any of those things." "Why not?" Vorthik asked. "Because destruction is easy," Morrison replied. "Any species can destroy. But building something better requires wisdom and patience. That is what separates us from you." Science Officer Kurth spoke up from his station. "Admiral, I am detecting massive energy signatures from the human ships. They appear to be powering down their weapon systems." Vorthik turned to look at his officer in surprise. "Powering down? But they have us completely at their mercy." Dr. Foster reappeared on the screen. "Admiral, we are going to do something that no one has ever done for your species before. We are going to trust you." The human ships around the Draconian fleet began to move away, giving the alien vessels room to maneuver. The quantum viruses that had infected their systems began to withdraw, returning control to the Draconian crews. "Your ships are now under your control again," Foster announced. "Your weapons are functional. Your communications are restored. You are free to leave if you choose." Vorthik stared at the tactical display in amazement. The humans had given up every advantage they had gained. His fleet could fight or flee, and the humans had made both options possible. "I do not understand," Vorthik said quietly. "Why would you do this?" Commander Evans smiled on the screen. "Because, Admiral, true strength is not about having power over others. True strength is about choosing when not to use that power. The Draconian admiral walked slowly around his bridge, looking at each of his officers. These were warriors who had served him faithfully through dozens of campaigns. They had followed him across the galaxy in the name of conquest and glory. "Communications officer," Vorthik said finally, "open a channel to all ships in the fleet." When the channel was established, Vorthik took a deep breath and began to speak. "Captains of the Imperial fleet, today we have learned something that changes everything we thought we knew about the galaxy." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "We believed we were the strongest species in the galaxy. We believed that strength gave us the right to take whatever we wanted from weaker races. We were wrong." The communication channel remained silent as his words sank in. "The humans have shown us that true strength comes from protecting others, not from conquering them. They have shown us mercy when we deserve none." Vorthik turned back to the main screen where the human leaders were waiting. "President Rodriguez, I speak for the entire Draconian Empire when I say that we accept your offer. We choose to change." Rodriguez smiled for the first time since the crisis began. "Admiral, that is the wisest decision your species has ever made." The screen changed to show celebrations breaking out across dozens of worlds. Species that had been hiding in fear for centuries were finally free to return to their homes. The Korathi, the Centauri, the Morlocks, and dozens of others began preparing to reclaim their worlds. "What happens now?" Vorthik asked. Captain Anderson stepped forward. "Now, Admiral, the real work begins. Your people will help us rebuild what was destroyed. You will learn new ways to live that do not require conquering others." Dr. Stone appeared beside Anderson. "We will teach you our technology, but more importantly, we will teach you our values. Your children will grow up in a galaxy where strength is measured by what you build, not by what you destroy." Over the following months, the transformation of the Draconian Empire became the greatest project in galactic history. Human teachers worked alongside Draconian students. Former slave worlds became thriving colonies. The breeding programs were shut down and replaced with schools and hospitals. Admiral Vorthik found himself working closely with the species his empire had once oppressed. The Korathi taught his people about sustainable farming. The Centauri shared their knowledge of peaceful conflict resolution. The Morlocks showed them how to build cities that worked with nature instead of against it. 1 year later, Vorthik stood on the bridge of his ship as it approached Earth. But this time, he was not coming as a conqueror. He was coming as an ambassador. Carrying the gratitude of his transformed people, Captain Morrison met him at the spaceport with a smile and an extended hand. "Welcome to Earth, Ambassador Vorthik. How does it feel to be part of something greater than yourself?" Vorthik clasped the human's hand firmly. "It feels like coming home, Captain. Thank you for showing us that strength and wisdom can go hand in hand." As they walked together toward the United Nations building, Vorthik reflected on how much had changed. The Draconian Empire was gone, replaced by the Draconian Republic. War had been replaced by cooperation. Fear had been replaced by hope. Behind them, ships from dozens of species filled the sky, all working together to build a better galaxy. The age of conquest was over. The age of cooperation had begun, and somewhere in the vast cosmos, the Forerunners watched their children with pride, knowing that the galaxy was finally ready for the next phase of its evolution.